Hello, I'm Ali Langdon. Welcome to this special edition of A Current Affair. The faces you just saw are women who don't know each other, but they have one thing in common. They should still be alive. Less than 3 years ago, when we thought we were at the peak of this emergency, the National Plan to End Gender-Based Violence was set in motion. Since then, 184 women have been killed as a result of violence in this country. Look at the faces in this room. Now double it. They're more than statistics. They're mothers, daughters, partners, friends, cousins, colleagues. They were loved and they deserve to live. It's why we're here tonight, to sit in that discomfort, face the hard truths and have brave conversations that lead to real solutions.
No more violence, no more hate!
And it's too much. I can't stand and say nothing anymore.
No more, no more!
The number of men who have ever used violence has increased from 1 in 4 to 1 in 3.
Enough is enough, we need action.
We have a big job to do and we need to work collaboratively across the country to achieve the goal of ending gender-based violence in a generation.
Stand up and call these perpetrators out. We're not going to stop it unless we stand up to these bullies.
No more violence, no more hate! No more violence, no more hate!
For anything to change, we need our politicians, police and the courts on the same page. And tonight, they're all in this room, along with the families who know the pain far too well. Sue and Lloyd Clark, their daughter Hannah and grandkids Aaliyah, Layana and Trey were murdered by Hannah's estranged husband. Sue and Lloyd have been fighting tirelessly for coercive control laws to be introduced nationally ever since. Alicia Little's family, mother Lee, brother Bronson and sister-in-law Lauren. The mother of 4 was killed when she tried to leave her abusive relationship. Alicia's fiancé, Charles Mackenzie Ross Evans, spent less than 3 years in prison. On this side of the room, we have Federal Social Services Minister Tanya Plibersek. It is her job to bring the states together to come up with a national solution, and the issue of domestic violence is also deeply personal for her. Acting New South Wales Police Commissioner Peter Thurtell, he is filling in for the top job and is in charge of Australia's first domestic violence command. Professor David Heilpern is a former magistrate and Dean of Law at Southern Cross University. After more than 20 years on the bench, he knows the complexities of the court system and admits he's granted bail to men who have gone on to kill. CEO of No to Violence, Philip Ripper, his organisation works with men who use family violence and supports them to change their behaviour. We know if men aren't part of the conversation, nothing changes. And Pip Ray. She's a former police officer who's seen domestic abuse firsthand, both on the job and at home. She's a survivor who now works with women's shelters, helping others navigate the system. Thank you to all of you. We're really hoping we can make a difference tonight. Can I ask, in one sentence, why are you here?
Because coercive control doesn't stop at state borders.
There's no national register for domestic violence offenders. If you offend in one state, it doesn't carry on to another state. What about the person that may need help in that state?
To this side of the room, Tanya?
Well, because we really need to see men's behaviour change, to see less violence in our families and our communities.
With the call for assistance coming in every 3 minutes, the prevalence of domestic violence in our society is at a point where we need to do things differently and better.
We need root and branch changes to our criminal justice system, from policing right through to sentencing, that puts family and domestic violence right at the forefront rather than in second, third or fourth place.
And because we need to focus on the scale of this problem and we need to stop doing more of the same and expect a different result. We need to think better, think harder and be more strategic, and men have to be part of that.
And I'm here to create the change that I needed. Every step of the way, from prevention right through to recovery.
Sue and Lloyd, your daughter Hannah has become one of, if not the most high-profile domestic violence case in this country, and That is a title no one wants.
Good evening. We begin with a horrifying crime. Police describing it as one of the worst they've seen.
The terrible deaths of Queensland mother Hannah Clark and her 3 children at the hands of the children's father is almost beyond comprehension.
A jerry can of fuel was bought from a nearby service station, emptied over the car containing his family, and then ignited.
She had in her head as well, domestic violence was physical, and then she soon learned it was more to it.
Coercive control laws have come into effect across Queensland today, also called Hannah's Law.
Every year there's milestones we're missing, but our legacy not going to stop here.
Doesn't get any easier seeing that, does it?
It gets harder, I think. You miss them more. For a while you're in shock and you can explain away that you know, they're away or something, but it gets harder. Our eldest granddaughter would have been high school this year. So much we're missing out on. Her and I would have had some great arguments, I think. She was very sassy.
Lee, I can see the tears in your eyes.
It breaks my heart to see this happening every day and nothing's been done about it.
You sit beside Sue and
Yep.
you know that pain
I do.
more than any of us
for the
here
rest of our
understand.
lives.
We know Hannah's name and we know the kids, and we're so sorry for that. But Lee, Bronson and Lauren, we should all know your daughter's name, your sister's name, and not enough people do.
A man has been charged with murder following the death of his partner, a mother of 4 in Kyneton.
And emergency services were called to her Lavenders Lane home following reports of an assault.
At the time the police got there, my sister was deceased. She'd been crushed between a water tank and a motor vehicle that he was driving.
At first, police charged Charles Evans with murder. When the case went to court, prosecutors struck a deal. Evans got just 4 years jail.
Our daughter's life was only worth 4 years, but he only did 2 years, 8 months.
Absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what's wrong with our justice system, but it needs to be fixed bad.
You're her voice now.
Yep.
She's so much more than a statistic. Tell us about Alicia, the mum of 4, your
Right.
daughter, your sister.
Bright, bubbly, happy, gave the best hugs you could ever have. It hurts. It hurts. I can't call my sister for advice. My kids can't call her auntie. Nothing's going to bring my sister back. I've bought my sister. That's all I have. All I have is my sister.
Why did you bring Alicia's ashes with you today?
Because that's all I have, and I'm doing this for her. If I can change one person's life or save one person's life, I've achieved what I want to achieve for my sister.
Coming up, less than 3 years in prison for killing Alicia Little. A former magistrate reacts.
You've said that you have bailed men who've then gone on to kill. Does that weigh on you?
Oh, enormously.
Plus, Minister Tanya Plibersek's personal battle with the court system.
I've never done anything as emotionally draining as that.
And they didn't know they were abusive. The wake-up call that changed these men's lives.
Belittling, yelling and humiliation. It was severe emotional abuse.
At the time the police got there, my sister was deceased. She'd been crushed between a water tank and a motor vehicle that he was driving.
Evans got just 4 years jail.
Our daughter's life was only worth 4 years, but he only did 2 years, 8 months.
Anyone else filled with rage hearing that sentence?
It's truly shocking, and I really feel loss. It really adds to the pain to be told that your daughter's life is only worth less than 3 years jail time.
In Alicia's case, a plea deal was done where the murder charge was dropped to dangerous driving causing death. How is her life worth so little, David?
So the criminal justice system just does not have as its focus personal violence, and it needs to change. Just a couple of examples. Shoplifting carries a maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment. Break and enter carries a maximum of 12 or 14 years imprisonment, whereas breaching an apprehended domestic violence order is 2 years. I know, sitting as a magistrate, the number of drug driving matters that I would get before me, that's detection matters, would interfere completely with my ability to deal properly with domestic violence cases.
He lost his licence for longer than he spent in jail. Now, he can't drive a vehicle in jail.
Yeah.
Where is the justice system? How does that work? Look, to be perfectly honest, the system failed us.
Exactly.
And
who's
I'm more
accountable?
than happy to stand up and say it. The system failed my family.
I don't think that there's room anymore for these piecemeal changes. We actually need a holistic change to ensure that victims of violence take pride of place in the criminal justice system rather than just being another case. I think we're all aware that if bail is granted to an offender, for that to be reconsidered by the Supreme or other higher courts is a really long-term process that just really doesn't happen much at all. That needs to be really quick.
But let's talk about bail for a moment, because I think we often hear that someone gets bailed and we sit at home and go, how the hell would anyone, how would a magistrate or a judge let that person out? How do you come to that decision, David?
It's really difficult because what you're doing is trying to predict human behaviour. And there are literally thousands of domestic violence cases involving threats that come before you.
Right.
And you can't bail refuse all of them. So you have to try and do your best to pick the ones that aren't going to reoffend and the ones where there isn't a strong prosecution case and where there is no prior record, all of the factors that we take into account.
And how quickly do you have to make that decision?
It's a matter of minutes for each matter. Determining bail it's a really tough decision and mistakes are going to be made.
You've said that you have bailed men who've then gone on to kill. Does that weigh on you?
Oh, enormously. Just as much as bail refusing people who then are killed in custody.
Yeah.
And that happens too. So this is a very high stakes, very quick decision that has to be made, replete with error. And the answer, or there is no single answer, but part of the problem again is the appeal system. There should be very rapid appeals on issues of bail, especially in domestic violence cases. If courts get it wrong, then we should be before a higher court within 24 hours to make a decision.
The other fact is too is we're controlled by the DPP. I have no control over my sister's court case. And don't get me wrong, I would have sold everything I had to defend my sister. Everything. And I wouldn't care if I was walking around in nothing today because my sister's my blood. And I could not defend my sister one little bit. But yet they can go and hire the best lawyer in the country? Where is the justice there? And where's the line draw? You know, I'm dealing with the DPP and they're saying to me, you can't appeal this. They sat my family in a room for 45 minutes and listened to our questions. And at the end of it, they said to us, we only brought you here to appease you. That's the exact words that come out of their mouth.
I said, would you have been happy with that sentence if it was your daughter? Sister, wife? And they all said, no, but we're not going to change it.
Then I sat through a coronial inquest. And the first thing the coroner said to my family was, I am so sorry this case was dealt the way that it was dealt with. Doesn't bring my sister back.
We have a federal minister who, I'm sure you don't mind me sharing, Tanya. I mean, as I said, this is a deeply personal issue for you. Your daughter went through the court system because of an abusive relationship.
Yeah, she did. And I don't think that makes her or our family at all unusual. What I learnt about going through the court system as a mum compared with, you know, being on this side of the decision making is it is exhausting, it is demoralising, it's, I mean, you know, she was still asked what she was wearing and how much she'd been drinking when one of the assaults happened. I was giving evidence for 3 hours and it was exhausting. I'd never done anything as emotionally draining as that. The thing that was most difficult for her was the behaviour of the defence barrister, who constantly for 3 days was accusing this honourable, decent young woman of being a liar.
Yep.
Exactly the same situation.
We had the same thing.
Exactly the same thing we went through.
And I know that you have to test, someone is innocent until proven guilty. I accept that is a fundamental principle in our court system. But the damage done to the to the people who are giving evidence in a situation like this because of the way that testing is done really is very hard to get over.
Wow.
And so you think about my daughter, great support from the police, great judge, family support as much as we could give her. It was hard for us as a family. For those people who don't have that support, it must be almost impossible to live through.
And Pip, because you help victims and survivors navigate this system with police and the courts.
Yeah.
It is messy and it is confusing.
I interpret all of that language for a victim to make it easier for them to understand, because this is a system that they've probably never had to deal with before, and you would know as well that, like, when you're not involved in it, you don't know what's coming next. The anxiety that sits with those victims is incredible, because they're not quite sure. But I know that they rely heavily on the police in a fact sheet to tell what, what that history of that person might be, or what the demeanour of the person is before making a decision as well. So you've got all this information coming in a matter of minutes to make a decision. And to be honest, I don't think that the court system is always a great place not to bring your children into. There are safer strategies, and I work in a civil space which is so big and it has so many resources available.
I think it falls back on other victims too.
Exactly.
They fall quieter. Like, it's not reported enough now, but they really don't report when they see someone and the efforts that have gone to there, and that's the outcome. It makes them withdraw more. They don't want to. They don't want to
feel
spend.
they're not worth it.
Correct.
Because they've been told they're worthless.
Yep.
And you've been
Nobody
told
loves them. They're no good. They're stupid.
Yep.
So why go to the police?
100%.
And why do it? Because they're going to go to court and get away.
Look, as police, we all want to win this fight against domestic violence. We will support the victims as much as we can. We will lock up as many offenders as we need to lock up. But we can't do it alone. You can't arrest your way out of a situation like this. It takes a whole of government approach, a whole of society approach. Men need to have a serious look at themselves and change their behaviour.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, let's dive a little deeper into what is behind the violence. Let's look at that source, because it's not always physical. We're going to hear from men who admit they've been abusive themselves. The stats are scary, and men are the key to changing that.
I thought I knew what family violence was. It was hitting or threatening your partner or children. I had absolutely no idea I was, in fact, the perpetrator of family violence.
Plus, she could have been saved. The police mistake, Alicia Little's family says, could have cost her life.
They believed everything he said and threw her in the paddy.
It was a sunny afternoon in late June when my whole identity was challenged. This was the day I got served with an intervention order by the police for violence against my separated wife and children. It was heartbreaking to read of what I had done, including accusing her of mismanaging the finances so I could control the money, verbally abusing her and making her friends feel too uncomfortable to visit, which isolated her as well. I thought I knew what family violence was. It was hitting or threatening your partner or children. I had no idea there was such a thing as emotional abuse. And as for financial abuse, I had absolutely no idea I was, in fact, the perpetrator of family violence.
There was a lot of yelling in the house. It was constant. It was madness and unhealthy. I reverted to some of the behaviours that I've learnt from my parents: belittling, yelling and humiliation. It was severe emotional abuse. I had concerns about what I did when I became angry, what I might do to those around me. I played a lot of mind games, and being passive-aggressive was my main weapon.
I found out about men's behaviour change programs. I was still in denial about my abuse, but as I sat there listening to another man, it dawned on me that society has deemed my behaviour abusive, and who was I to say society was wrong?
What really helped first was to say out loud what I'd done in a way of violence or abuse. Reciting it is powerful as it breaks through any denial and minimisation and moves you straight into vulnerability and shame. From there, I was able to forgive myself for what I was and commence being a better man.
From that moment on, I've done everything I possibly can to change and embrace the change.
It's as though the dark aura that I had is now gone and people are less threatened by me.
Welcome back to this special edition of A Current Affair. Those were the real voices of real men who have used abusive behaviour. Their stories were compiled by social worker Margaret Chipperfield in her book No Buts. How did we feel watching that?
I like to hear men trying to change. I think it's great. I heard of a story not long after Hannah passed of a husband of a friend of Hannah's who started reading about coercive control and red flags and actually went to his wife and said, "Oh my God, it's like looking in the mirror." And he went and got help. I like to see that. Not all men who are perpetrators are going to kill, and not all are as dangerous as our perpetrators. Some can change.
They all deserve one chance, a perpetrator. Give them that one chance. And if they go back to their old ways, they feel the force of the judicial system doubly.
I think it's courageous to admit it, and I respect people who try and change. I think it's sometimes a very dangerous time for women in relationships though, because the men say, "I'm really trying to change, look, I'm doing this program." You have to be very certain that what you're doing is working and that it's keeping the women and children safe, because the end of a relationship is a very dangerous time.
I think too, as a male, like, it took me a lot to speak about my sister. It took me a long time to come to have the courage to do it and to know what to say and how to say it, because as men we think we're that strong we don't have to do anything. You know, we're tough, we can handle all of this sort of stuff. But to hear them gentlemen speak like that, that's a huge step. That is a massive step for them. And I think moving forward, if we get more males into them classes, into them rooms and talking to people, it's moving forward.
If we're to solve this epidemic, we need men to be front and centre. Philip, are we calling it out enough? And what more can men be doing?
Look, I think one of the problems we have at the moment is we treat all people who use family violence as sort of one and the same. All men are the same. And what we know is that no two people on the planet are the same, no two men are the same. But we don't have the sophistication of the responses that we need for different men at different points. What we know is that there are a lot of men who have a light bulb moment at some point and say, "This is me," or "I need different." It's very hard to predict when that light bulb moment will be. Some men are very good at blaming others and failing to take responsibility. So what we say to men generally is, be a man, be an adult, understand your choices, understand you can make better choices. Using family violence is always a choice. Ring our men's referral service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Speak to a trained telephone counsellor about your use of family violence.
As we've been speaking about, 1 in 3 men have used a form of violence towards an intimate partner, and a vast majority of those were emotionally abusive. Acting Commissioner, we need to remember that most men, the majority of men, are good and are appalled by this abhorrent behaviour that we're talking about here tonight. So what is your message as a man to anyone listening tonight?
So, as you pointed out, most men are good. Those good men play a role, a very strong role, to call out the behaviour of their friends, their family members, etc., that engage in domestic violence or abuse or coercive control, and point out to them, if they don't have the sense, the common sense to reflect on their own behaviour, then point out to them that what they're doing is unacceptable, that it's wrong by their family, it's wrong by their mates, and they're not the sort of person that they want to hang around with if they engage with that sort of behaviour. But also, where necessary, they need to call the police and let us know what's going on as well.
One of the big challenges that we don't talk about nearly enough is the amount of violent, misogynistic pornography online.
Yes.
And the fact that teenage boys are watching violent porn before they've had their first kiss. And there's something damaging to the soul about this.
And I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that just making longer sentences or just locking up more people is going to make the difference. It's programs, it's
education,
active policing, it's education, and it's telling your stories that make the difference.
It's educating the schools, it's educating the police, the judicial system, it's educating the community. 5 years ago, no one knew what coercive control was. Well, I didn't. All these professors and professional people did. And that's when we said, well, we've got to do something about this. You know, this is just bull.
And coercive control, you've got to look at the whole story.
Yes.
Not just the victims. You've got to speak to friends and family.
The kids, the children.
Yeah, the kids know.
They know. Aaliyah, she would have dobbed him in straight away. You
and
know?
Leanna at 3, who loved babies, told me she was never going to be a mum because husbands yell at you all the time.
Pip crosses that line because you were turning up to some of the worst DVD cases as a young police officer. But just explain what was happening at home and how were you explaining away that behaviour?
So I would turn up, and normally when I would think that the police are called, it's really serious. But when I went home and there was that little bit of coercive control, there was a snipe here or a sarcasm or making me feel uncomfortable in my own house, chipping away at my parenting, I knew it wasn't as bad as what I was dealing with at work. So my threshold became so high that I actually was able to tolerate a lot more.
You explained it away, almost.
So for me, I became numb. I became, you know, something quite significant would have had to have happened to me to make me realise what was really going on.
That's why Small Steps have started 2 programs. Hannah's Story, which is the red flags, and the Holt one, which is for kids in schools. And we've only just started, you know, we're going to 12 months, but it's going gangbusters. Hannah's Story has been picked up by the Tasmanian Police. They are getting great results down there. Now they're seeing perpetrators getting put in jail. And it's because the young constables and even the old guys are realising what coercive control is. They're seeing those red flags. Hannah had 27 out of 37 red flags. We didn't know. We didn't know at the time. That's why we thought we need change. And everyone now is wanting that change. So, for goodness sakes, listen to the podcast, listen to Hannah's Story. You'll hear those and see those red flags.
And for those men who don't use family violence, step up. This matters. This matters to our whole community. And as the Minister said, this is only going to be solved at a social-wide level.
Coming up, kicking violent offenders off dating apps. The government is keeping kids off social media, so can they do the same for abusers?
This offender went to Queensland and went on a dating app. Now, what about another lady or another, you know, your child? It could be your daughter.
Plus, victims say they don't believe reporting abuse to police will help.
No, well, I disagree.
How in God's name can a convicted criminal get approval to move to Queensland? He has a history of domestic violence. He's done it to his ex-wife, he's done it to my sister. And all I can say is this bloke will repeat again.
So, Charles Evans is now 52. He moved from Victoria to Queensland and he's on Tinder and he's on Bumble.
He's even going on in international dating sites.
I think we all agree, right? Someone like Charles Evans should not be allowed on dating sites without his history well known to every woman who's ticking yes or swiping right.
What about another lady or another, you know, your child? It could be your daughter. Could be your daughter. They don't know.
Because we look at what the federal government is doing and most of us applaud it in trying to keep kids off social media until the age of 16. Can we have a similar program where we're keeping women safe on dating sites?
There is a real responsibility on the companies that are making a
100%.
fortune out of the dating apps to be able to remove people if they're not safe. Now, there is a code of conduct. This is world leading. The code of conduct does allow these companies to remove people who are not safe, but I don't know how hard the companies are working to do that.
Tanya, do you know that they only remove them if you report it?
Yeah.
and then they've got to investigate it.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
if it doesn't come up that anything's showing,
Yeah.
they leave them on there.
Yeah. So you're always relying on the victims again.
I think the hardest part about it all is introducing legislations is great, but then who polices those things that then come in? So who's then responsible for keeping an eye on that stuff?
Acting Commissioner, do you have some thoughts on this?
Yes, I do. In New South Wales, come the 29th of September this year, we'll be introducing legislation on serious domestic abuse prevention orders, which will allow us to actually apply to the court in some circumstances to prevent people having access to dating apps, to social media, etc. So that will be a game changer for us, particularly for those serious matters where we hold real concerns about the risk that these people pose to the community in general, but more specifically to victims of domestic violence.
Just to terrify everyone, Charles Evans recently wrote on his Facebook profile, "Don't know why I'd done it, don't know why I'll do it again." There was no context, but that is chilling considering we know what he has done. Acting Commissioner, would local police know that this person is now in their town?
If it was a New South Wales person that was registered in New South Wales, we would likely know that he is moved into that area, and then we can proactively enforce any apprehended domestic violence orders that are in place at the time. But we can also proactively keep an eye on people where there aren't actual orders in place as well.
So is that information shared across state lines?
It has the ability to be shared across state lines, particularly the existence of an order, but not necessarily if somebody has no order and just moves interstate at a particular point in time.
Okay, so that is a really big thing that we need to focus on, and that is a really big thing that's going to keep a lot more women safe if states start sharing that information.
We really need to have a domestic violence register, and it needs to be a national database. We need a leashes law.
So is something like that possible, getting a national domestic violence register up and running, Tanya?
Well, there's a couple of things. South Australia has a register and New South Wales has trialled one. The results, I think the police would say in New South Wales have been pretty mixed. So I'm all for doing anything that will work. But there's one thing I want to raise, which is sometimes if you look up someone and they're not on a register, you think, oh, okay, I'm imagining this. This guy's not dangerous. He's not on a register. You need to be really careful not to give someone a false sense of security either. So we've got to make sure when we're developing programs, we're super careful to back what works and think about whether there are possible unintended consequences as well. It's very delicate work. You've got to be very careful not to make things worse.
Because I guess you've got to look at, like, what is that threshold to end up on a DV register? So we've got New South Wales and Queensland who now have coercive control as a crime. Are you on that register if you are emotionally abusive, or does it just apply to someone who is physically or sexually abusive?
Or is it only someone who's gone to court? Because we know only a fraction of cases go. That wouldn't have protected Hannah.
Not at all.
Only a fraction of cases ever end up in court.
And it wouldn't have protected Alicia
Alicia.
Nick, can I pick up a point though, and I'd be really keen to hear the Commissioner's view, because I've spoken to senior police and police unions and police officers from across Australia, and they'll say 50%, if not more, of frontline policing every day is family violence. That the police system really is a family violence system. And at the same time we're hearing only 20% of family violence is ever reported to police. So if you just do the math...
Your information's correct. In New South Wales, our commands can range anywhere from about 40% to 60% of their daily workload is domestic and family violence. So it is so prevalent, and it depends on the day as to the workload for our officers on a particular day, but it's never not present.
But Acting Commissioner, we know there is so much under-reporting of domestic violence. Victims say they don't believe reporting abuse to police will help.
No, well, I disagree. We take action as often as we should take action. It's really important that the community understand that you need to ring the police. If you're the subject of domestic abuse or violence, you need to ring the police. And Worst case scenario, you have a discussion with somebody about it, but we would generally take action in response to your call. They must call us.
And the problem is that the more police say we will take action in every case, that can weaponise perpetrators. We know that about a third of those who've been killed in domestic violence incidents in Queensland were themselves respondents in domestic violence cases, killed by the people who were the protected persons. So the system is able to be gamed unless there's proper safeguards in place.
My sister called 000 and she asked for him to be removed from the property because he was drunk and abusive. To me, that's domestic violence.
Yes.
To anybody else, it's domestic violence. No. It was a driving charge. You know, domestic violence didn't come into it.
Even if you go back to the first time that Alicia got belted by him, bashed by him, he rang 000. They believed everything he said and threw her in the paddy.
And what did that then mean moving forward in that relationship? How he used that over her and what happened each time he would abuse her?
Well, she was misidentified as the perpetrator. So when there was calls from her futuristically calling the police saying, please remove him, like, I'm in danger, I'm scared. As the perpetrator, they probably thought that they could get away with not rushing there or taking a little bit longer to get there, because if she's calling and she's the perpetrator, then they had time.
You can see bruises, you can see that physical distress. How do you then work out coercive control?
The legislation alone gives us powers and ability to define what coercive control may be, but the legislation itself has allowed us to think differently in the way we deal with domestic violence victims. And it's not just, as was mentioned before, just about the violence, the bruises, etc. This has changed our way of thinking. I believe it's changing the way of thinking of the judiciary and the community, that domestic violence is not just an act of violence in itself. That domestic abuse side of things is something that we are now starting to think of.
But can I say, listening to this, it is an enormous, enormous burden on our police.
Yes.
And what we're asking.
I do think that the police are doing too much and they need to rely on other experts. We've got counsellors, we've got frontline services and agencies like, No to Violence that will help if they're referred. It's not up to the police just to do it. That is a legal process.
In the last 5 years, we have noticed a big shift in policing. When we first started talking about it, we had a lot of stories about, there's no bruises and just, it's hormonal. See you later. Get out. Basically, come back when you're broken. Now we're seeing a lot more interaction. They're wanting to help with co-responders, having a co-responder there going out with the police who are DV people, helping them to understand the situation.
There's a change.
There is a change.
A change in the old boys club. Yeah. I think everything's changing there.
It's going to get worse before it gets better, because we're going to find more people are going to come forward. More women and men will come forward about coercive control, about domestic violence, because now police are starting to look at it better, and until, unfortunately, the judges get better, then we'll start seeing it drop, I think.
Up next, our panel's final words to each other and to you at home.
The hardest thing for a man is we think we're strong and we're robust. Go and ask somebody for help.
Plus, the video of Hannah the Clark family wants you to see.
To the right, to the right. Now take your left hand and put it on your side. Put it on your side. Come roll your shoulders. Do the slip and slide.
So, Sue and Lloyd, you wanted to sort of see that clip of Hannah. Why?
Well, that's how we like to remember her, full of life. But he filmed that of her. She did it for the kids to make them laugh, and he filmed it and put it all over social media, telling her she looked like an effing idiot and everyone would think she was a fool. And it backfired. Everyone just loved it because it was her, her being her. And that was just a few months before she left. And she was strong. She was getting her strength.
It is a reminder that these women and children so much more than statistics. They are loved, they're missed, and they will be remembered. So before we go, you guys every time, I want to open it up to the floor. Is there anything you haven't had a chance to say?
I want to say that, you know, I am your daughter that survived, and even with all my skills and knowledge and understanding of this system, I still found it really hard to leave.
I hate to hear people say, can't be that bad or she would have left.
Yeah.
They don't understand. If you know somebody who's in a domestic violence situation, please be patient. They will leave when they are ready, and it's safest for them to leave when they're ready. Let them know that they have a safe place to go to, help them with a safe escape plan, but just be patient, let them know you love them and believe them.
Well, too often we ask, why didn't she leave? When we should ask, where would she go?
Yeah, correct.
And
will she be safe?
And will she be safe when she leaves? Couple of things that we're doing as a government that will help. $1 billion investment in accommodation for women and children fleeing violence, new refuges, new homes. And the second thing is from the 1st of July this year, leaving violence payment that makes it easier to afford to go. And we know that none of these things on their own are the solution, but every element of this has to work together to make our society safer for women and their children.
Lee?
Oh.
Do you feel heard tonight?
Yes, I do feel heard. And I feel that there's going to be change, but it's going to take a long, long time. You know, we're one country. We should have one database for domestic coercive control and let it stand.
Yep. I'm going to say this as a male. It ain't weak to speak. Stand up and speak out. If you need help, go and get help. Because the hardest thing for a man is we think we're strong and we're robust. Go and ask somebody for help. Because I did, and it was the best thing I ever did.
Thanks, Bronson.
It's just a shame this gets highlighted every time there's a death. So as long as we're talking about it and we're making moves in the forward direction to make that change, then no one else has to die.
It's that one word behind you, enough.
Enough.
Yeah. Yep.
It's enough.
And honestly, to you as families, I will hold in my heart the women you have lost and do everything I can so that no one else has to suffer what you have suffered as families.
Yeah.
And coming from us to you, you've lived this on both sides. You've lived it as a politician and you've lived it as a mum. So thank you. Thank you for helping make the steps forward.
Thank you.
So gender-based violence isn't something we can fix in a couple of years, and it's certainly not something that we can fix here in one night. But we need to make noise to make change, and so to everyone on the panel, thank you, you are doing that. And to you at home, thank you so much for listening. If you or someone you know is experiencing sexual abuse or family violence, there is help. Call 1-800-RESPECT. That's 1-800-737-732. I'm Ali Langdon. Thank you so much for your company. Good night.